Alright folks, buckle up because the Jonathan Kuminga saga just keeps getting messier, more dramatic, and honestly kinda fascinating. The NBA Summer League has wrapped up, teams are heading home, the gyms in Vegas are empty now, but one major situation remains totally unresolved: what's going to happen with Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. This was supposed to be the time when the air cleared, when some sort of agreement or decision would be made. Instead, we're left with more questions than ever. Kuminga reportedly had meetings lined up in Vegas, not just with the Warriors, but with other franchises as well. Word on the street is he already had some conversations with the Chicago Bulls. But here's where it gets spicy. According to reports, Jonathan Kuminga no longer wants to play for Golden State. That's it. He wants out, and if you've been following this situation closely, you probably saw this coming. Think back to how things ended last season. The tension with Steve Kerr was real. The inconsistency in his role, the flashes of brilliance that were followed by long stretches of sitting on the bench, you could just feel something had to give. And now it looks like Kuminga himself is drawing a line in the sand. The word is he's seeking a contract worth $30 million per year. Yes, you heard that right, $30 million. That's superstar money, type money. And that's where the disconnect really starts to show. Last year, he reportedly turned down a 5-year, $150 million deal. That's the kind of offer most players would jump at, but Kuminga said no. Now we can debate all day whether or not he's worth that kind of money, but here's what we know. He believes he is, and that belief is driving his decisions right now. Let's look at the numbers. Last season, Kuminga averaged around 15 points per game, grabbed about 4.5 rebounds, and shot 45% from the field. Solid, absolutely. Promising for sure. But is that $30 million a year production? That's the big question. And the Warriors, they don't seem to think so. From everything that's coming out, Golden State is only comfortable with a number closer to $20 million annually. They're being cautious, and honestly, it makes sense. They're still trying to figure out what his ceiling really is. And that's not even getting into the logistics of trying to trade him right now, because here's the reality: if the Warriors try to do a sign-and trade today, they can only get back half the value of his new contract in return. So for example, let's say Kuminga signs for $20 million. If Golden State moves him immediately, they're only allowed to take back players or assets worth up to $10 million in that deal. That's not ideal, but if they wait until after December, that restriction lifts and they can trade him for the full amount. That's a huge difference. It gives the Warriors way more flexibility in negotiating a fair deal. So what we're seeing here is a high-stakes waiting game. Kuminga wants to move now. Golden State wants to wait. And while that plays out, the front office is quietly exploring sign-and trade options, just in case the right deal comes along sooner than expected. Now let's talk about the Bulls for a second. That's the team that keeps coming up in rumors. And one name that's been mentioned as part of a potential trade package is Ayo Dosunmu. He's a solid young guard, plays hard on both ends, and has shown flashes of being a very reliable rotation player. Last season, he averaged around 12 points and 3.5 rebounds. Not a huge name, but a solid contributor. And more importantly, he's on a manageable contract somewhere around $7 million for the upcoming season. That's the kind of number that could work in a sign-and trade scenario, especially if Kuminga signs for $20 million and the Warriors have to get creative to make the math work. They'd still need to include other pieces, maybe a draft pick or a young player like Julian Phillips to balance things out, but it's doable. There's also been some speculation about Josh Giddey. Now, Giddey's not on the Bulls, he's actually part of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But his name has floated around in the rumor mill, mostly because of how he could fit with the Warriors system. He's tall for a guard, has great vision, can shoot, and plays with a high IQ. In many ways, he could be a better system fit for Steve Kerr than Kuminga ever was. But here's the thing, OKC doesn't seem too eager to part with him. He's still on his rookie deal, he's young, and he's shown real upside. On top of that, he's a restricted free agent, which means OKC can match any offer he gets. So while it's an intriguing idea, it feels like a long shot at best. Back to Kuminga though, there are other routes he could take if a trade doesn't happen right away. He could accept the qualifying offer from the Warriors, which would pay him around $7.9 million for one more season. That would essentially be a bet-on-yourself move. He plays out the year, becomes an unrestricted free agent next summer, and tries to get the bag then. Or maybe he and the Warriors agree on a shorter deal, something like 2 years, with a player option for a third. That way he stays aligned contractually with veterans like Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry, and gives himself more leverage down the line. But based on everything we're hearing, Kuminga doesn't seem interested in staying put. He wants a fresh start. He wants a new role. He wants to be a starter, a centerpiece, not just a piece of the puzzle, and honestly, you can't blame him for feeling that way. The Warriors have been in win-o mode for years. They've prioritized veterans, trusted experience, and lean heavily on their core group. That's why young guys like Kuminga, James Wiseman, and even Moses Moody have had such a hard time finding consistent roles. It's a tough environment for development. And Kuminga clearly feels like he's ready to spread his wings. The problem is there's just not a big market out there right now. Most teams have already made their big moves. Rosters are mostly set. Cap space is tight. And with Olympic basketball not happening this summer, there aren't many opportunities for Kuminga to showcase himself on a big stage before training camp. Speaking of Summer League, let's not forget the Warriors did wrap up their run with a win over the Cleveland Cavaliers, finishing the tournament with 3 victories. And to losses, it was a decent showing, and we saw some nice flashes from the younger players, but it didn't really answer any of the bigger questions hanging over this team. If anything, it just made things more complicated. The coaching staff now has more film to review, more performances to weigh, and more tough decisions to make as they look ahead to training camp. Meanwhile, other dominoes around the league are starting to fall. Chris Paul, for example, just signed with the Clippers. That takes one more potential suitor for Kuminga off the board, and it signals that teams are moving on, locking in their rosters, and getting ready for the grind of the regular season. The longer this drags out, the fewer options Kuminga might have. That's the danger of holding out for a deal that might never come, because no matter how much potential a player has, if the timing isn't right, it doesn't matter. So now we wait. The Warriors are in no rush. They know the best leverage comes in December, when they can move Kuminga without restrictions and get equal value back. Until then, they'll keep listening, keep negotiating behind the scenes, and hope that either a team steps up with a strong offer or that Kuminga rethinks his stance. But for now, the standoff continues. One side wants a fresh start. The other side wants patience and flexibility. And in the middle is a young player with a ton of talent stuck in a holding pattern, just waiting to see what comes next. All right, let's dive deeper into this tangled situation with Jonathan Kuminga and what the next few weeks or even months could look like. Because as simple as it sounds to say, trade him, in the real NBA world, things are way more complicated. It's not just about sending a player somewhere else. It's about timing, contracts, salary cap implications, team needs, chemistry, and most of all, perception. And right now, the perception around Kuminga is shifting. He's no longer just a high upside prospect who needs time. He's becoming a polarizing figure in trade discussions. Some front offices still see the flashes of a future star. Others look at the numbers and the inconsistency and wonder if he's plateaued before even getting started. And that's where things start getting tricky for the Warriors. Because if you're Golden State, you're not just thinking about what you get back in a trade. You're also thinking about what kind of message that trade sends to the rest of the league. Trading away a lottery pick, someone you've developed for years, someone who was supposed to be a bridge between the old core and the next era. That's not a small decision. It's an admission that the two-timeline strategy didn't work. And that's a tough pill to swallow for any front office, especially one as proud and accomplished as Golden State's. Now, when you look at this roster, it's clear the Warriors are trying to walk a fine line. They want to compete now. Steph Curry is still playing at an elite level. Draymond Green is still one of the smartest defenders in the league, and Jimmy Butler brings that playoff pedigree. But they also know they can't lean on that trio forever. Time is catching up, which is why guys like Moses Moody, Brandon Pajimski, Trace Jackson Davis, those young pieces are so important. They're the ones who are supposed to carry the torch forward. The issue is not all of them will make that leap. Some will stall. Some might thrive elsewhere, and that's the risk you take when you let one go too soon. In Kuminga's case, it's not just about what he's done so far, it's about what teams believe he can still become. That's the gamble. Because when he's locked in, aggressive, and getting touches, he looks like a budding star. But when he's off, when he disappears into games, misses rotations, forces bad shots, he looks like someone who might never put it all together. And let's not forget, this is someone who's still only 21 years old. We're not talking about a finished product here. We're talking about a young player who's still figuring out the NBA game, still learning how to impact winning on both ends of the floor. That kind of development doesn't always happen linearly. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it never clicks. But let's shift the focus to why this is dragging out. Because if both sides are ready to move on, why hasn't something happened already? The answer comes down to leverage. The Warriors don't want to rush into a bad deal just to appease a frustrated player. They're looking for maximum value either now or later. And from Kuminga's perspective, he's betting on his upside. He thinks someone out there sees him as a foundational piece, not just a bench scorer or role player. But until that team makes an offer, we're stuck in this awkward limbo. The Warriors hold his rights. They can choose to wait. And right now they're betting that the market will be stronger mid-season, especially if Kuminga shows out in the early months. What's interesting is how much of this ties back to playing time. When Kuminga got minutes, real minutes, not garbage time he produced. He had stretches last season where he looked unstoppable going downhill. He was dunking on everyone running the floor, hitting mid-range jumpers. There were even a few games where he looked like the second best player on the team, but the consistency just wasn't there. And Steve Kerr, for all his strengths, isn't the kind of coach who coddles young players. If you're not defending, if you're not moving the ball, if you're not locked in mentally, he's going to pull you. That's part of what led to the disconnect. Kuminga wants the leash to make mistakes and grow. Kerr wants guys he can trust to play the right way every possession. And then there's the locker room dynamic. We all remember Draymond Green's history with younger teammates. He demands a certain level of professionalism, of toughness, of discipline. And when he doesn't see it, he lets you know loudly. Add Jimmy Butler to that mix, another veteran who doesn't mince words. And you've got a locker room that can be pretty unforgiving for young players still finding their way. Kuminga might feel like he's stuck in a system that doesn't fully support him. And honestly, he might be right. This is a team built around veterans, around guys who've won titles. The culture is centered on winning now, not waiting for someone to figure it out. But stepping outside the Warriors' bubble, what does the rest of the league think? That's the million-dollar question. Because if teams believed Kuminga was a guaranteed star, he'd already be gone. The truth is his value is in flux. There's potential, but there's also risk. You're trading for someone who wants a $30 million contract, who's already turned down a huge extension, and who hasn't proven he can anchor a lineup. That makes general managers pause, especially in an era where cap space is tight and every bad contract sets you back years. That's why the Bulls keep coming up. They're one of the few teams that might be willing to roll the dice. They're in a weird spot themselves, not quite rebuilding, not quite contending. They've got young players but no clear superstar. Adding someone like Kuminga could inject some new energy, maybe even give them a face of the franchise to build around. But to make the numbers work, they'd have to move pieces like Ayo or Kobe White, guys they've developed in value. And they'd have to believe Kuminga is worth the headache. Because make no mistake, this isn't just a trade for talent, it's a bet on personality, work ethic, fit, and maturity. Now let's say Kuminga does end up staying at least through training camp. What then? Does he show up locked in, ready to prove the doubters wrong? Or does it become a distraction, because nothing derails a team faster than internal drama? The Warriors don't want that. They've got enough on their plate already, managing minutes, staying healthy, finding chemistry with the new core. Adding a disgruntled young player to that mix, that's a recipe for problems. That's why the idea of a short-term deal, maybe 2 years with a third-year player option, has come up. It gives Kuminga some security, aligns his timeline with the team's vets, and leaves the door open for a trade down the line. But again, that only works if both sides are willing to compromise, and so far that hasn't happened. And let's not ignore the other factor here, free agency. If Kuminga takes the qualifying offer, he hits unrestricted free agency next summer. That gives him total control over his next move, but it's also risky. He could get injured. His role could shrink even more. His market could dry up. That's the gamble. He's betting that a strong season will put him back in the driver's seat. But that only works if he actually plays, and plays well. Sitting out, sulking, or butting heads with the coaching staff, that only hurts him. And his camp knows that, which is why the next few weeks are so crucial. Whatever direction this thing goes, it's going to define the next stage of Kuminga's career. Meanwhile, the Warriors have to keep moving forward. Summer League is over. The roster is mostly set. Training camp is on the horizon. There's work to be done. The Western Conference is brutal this year. The Nuggets are still dangerous. The Timberwolves are hungry. The Mavericks just made a big move. And let's not forget the Suns, Clippers, and Lakers are still lurking. There's no time for distractions. If the Warriors want to make one more run with Steph, they need everyone on the same page. That means resolving the Kuminga situation sooner rather than later. And that brings us back to the big picture. This isn't just about one player. It's about a franchise at a crossroads. The Warriors are trying to compete now while planning for the future. But sometimes you can't do both. Sometimes you have to choose. Do you ride with the vets and try to squeeze out one more title? Or do you pivot, hand the keys to the next generation, and accept the growing pains that come with that? It's not an easy call, and the Kuminga drama is just one piece of that larger puzzle. But make no mistake, how this plays out is going to say a lot about what this organization values, how it sees its future, and whether or not this era of Warriors basketball still has one more act left in it. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. There's been a stir in the NBA world after reports emerged that Golden State Warriors superstar Stephen Curry suffered an injury during a recent practice session. While official statements from the team remain scarce, the whispers among insiders and fans alike have already started fueling a wave of speculation about the potential impact on the Warriors season. Known for his remarkable shooting skills and leadership on the court, Curry's health is always a hot topic, and any hint of trouble sets alarm bells ringing across the league. Sources close to the team have hinted that the injury might not be severe, but the exact nature and timeline for Curry's return remain unclear. This uncertainty has sparked conversations about how the Warriors might adjust their strategies and rotations if Curry is sidelined for an extended period. The team's recent form and prospects for the playoffs are suddenly under a microscope as fans and analysts debate whether Golden State can maintain its competitive edge without its franchise player operating at full capacity. Adding to the intrigue, some insiders suggest this incident could open opportunities for other players on the Warriors roster to step up and prove their worth. Depth and versatility have been key to Golden State's success over the years, and this situation might test the team's resilience and adaptability. On the flip side, rival teams are undoubtedly watching closely, possibly seeing this as a chance to capitalize on any temporary weakness. Though the Warriors have yet to release a formal update, the buzz is already making waves on social media and sports talk shows. Speculation ranges from minor strains or sprains to the worst-case scenarios of a longer-term absence. In the high-stakes environment of professional basketball, even a brief injury to a player of Curry's caliber can shift the dynamics of the league, affecting everything from game outcomes to trade rumors. As the story develops, all eyes will be on Golden State's medical team and coaching staff for clues about the severity of Curry's injury and the expected timeline for his recovery. Meanwhile, fans can only hope for the best, eagerly awaiting news that their star player will bounce back quickly and continue to dazzle on the court. Until then, the NBA community remains on edge, watching closely as this potential setback unfolds. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.